Hello, and welcome to Breaking420News, our 2-weekly catch-up on the UK and even world cannabis news. I am, once again, your host, Rocky Vander blah 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 blah. The news will, as always, consist of some news interjected with some rhyming stuff and other rubbish in this particular Bender Scums style. So, first, a poem. Doom and gloom. I don't wish to come across all doom and gloom, though sometimes it feels I'm stuck in this room. I'm not talking here of my physical reality, but the law here in Britain due to government mentality. I'll attempt to inform you and try to explain, though my body is broken, I still have my brain. Since the general election, has something changed? The government we have are still bent and deranged. I'm hoping to see, as this new decade dawns, an end to draconian laws. We could shout and shout till we're blue in the face and still only wear out our jaws. But I hope that I'm wrong. As this new era starts, I can then stop campaigning and get down to some art. When they said it was legal, I knew it was bluff. It's fair to say I've just had enough of their lies in the media because nothing has changed. Remember though, they are still bent and deranged. But much worse than that, they have total autonomy, while between legal and lawful there remains little synonymy. Legal is merely a way to deceive and make all the people simply believe that legal is right, but look to the past. The moral disparities are really quite vast. Legal isn't lawful, that's unless you consent. To enforce cannabis laws means more tax money spent. The United Nations is quite likely to deschedule, so perhaps what they do will be quite influential. To weather this storm maybe needs an economist with a view to the future, so not an optometrist. But like government announcements, I'm just playing with words to show everybody how their thinking is absurd. There are so many arguments about Schedule 1. Prohibition needs banning, and it's not just a pun. First up is the UK news, and we start with court reports. The big UK news on the legal front: Gary Yow's long-time campaigner for change is in court today, February the 28th, in Liverpool for sentencing. We'd hoped to bring you the latest on this, but as this is recorded, we'll add it into the blah blah blah. Then on the 5th of March at 10 AM in Lincoln Crown Court, Davy Slater is also up for sentencing. JJ, the court support group, went along to support Lisa Andrews, who entered no plea. So next is a trial by jury in Sheffield Crown Court on the 17th of March. This is an interesting story around this, as the prosecution say there is evidence to suggest that she was growing for commercial reasons. The evidence is some texts communicating about selling clones. She only had 47 clones of 5 mature plants. Lisa was born with genetic defects manifesting in alternatively formed hands and forearms and congenital heart failure. At 43, she found herself cut off from DWP benefits and no PIP for 6 months. She had no money and was homeless, so stayed with a friend, the co-defendant, and grew in his house. She tried to sell some clones to survive, and this is her first offence ever. Our top reporter, the lovely JJ, whose idea of helping many within the community have fallen foul of our draconian legal system, which grew from a tiny seed and has blossomed into the court support group, have been busy travelling far and wide to show strength and unity with our fellow canna warriors in this war against our freedom of choice. JJ, Rachel, Paul, Colin, Jim, Simper, Callie, Catcher, Danny, and many, many more. And my serious apologies for any I don't know and have missed. Thank you all. You're the tits. And apologies to JJ for the word draconian. I hear she doesn't really like it. Next up, a snippet of UK media ethics. Ofcom, the broadcasting regulator ruled a TV station broke broadcasting rules in August 2019 in its report in the programme That's Lancashire on cannabis legalisation, covering a group of Parliament candidates, members who were advocating for the legalisation of cannabis. They decided it wasn't impartial but condoned and encouraged illegal use of cannabis. They only interviewed in the programme 5 members of the public who all supported the legalisation, but didn't interview anyone who was against it. A spokesman for the show said its reporter tried to find a range of views but couldn't find anyone that day who was against cannabis, despite having spent more time looking for people to interview than usual. Cannabis consumers suffer in the media almost daily. At the news desk, we feel the more the truth about cannabis gets out there beyond our community, the less and less people will have a problem with it, and the harder it will become to find many that do. Or, in other words, no surprise here. Whilst on the subject, don't forget to remind your friends and family that aren't necessarily cannabis consumers but support your use to tell everyone they know if you suspect someone is growing or using cannabis, mind your own fucking business. Maybe not swear though, because they might not like it. Medical cannabis was legalised in November 2018, but the treatments can be prescribed only by specialist doctors in a limited number of circumstances where other medicines have failed. So, following the release of a YouGov poll detailing how 1.4 million British citizens are resorting to using cannabis illegally in an attempt to treat conditions and symptoms including multiple sclerosis and arthritis, a new medical cannabis clinic has opened up in Solihull. Patients have been treated at the medical cannabis clinics in the town. Patients at the clinic can expect to pay £250 for initial consultation, with follow-up appointments costing £150. The clinic states that if treatment is going well, follow-up appointments can be arranged via telephone consultation at £50. We note that these are only the consultation fees and haven't yet seen the cost of their prescriptions, but nevertheless showing once again that the law is okay if you can pay. The legalisation in 2018 may have given the covert grow your own section of our community a slight feeling of relief, albeit only in their minds, as growing cannabis without a licence is still illegal, and it was even less good for anyone who wasn't able to grow their own. Also in Birmingham, at the NEC tomorrow, the 29th of February, is the first of 2 days of CBD and Hemp Expo, with companies' stands promoting their goods and services and competing for part of what we all hope will soon be historical changes in the relationship between cannabis and the law, enabling both traders and members of the public full lawful access to the benefits of the whole plant here in Britain. Many prominent activists are attending and giving talks, including members of the WTU, with a talk by Phil Monk on the second day and an information stand where members can network with businesses and other members of the wider world of cannabis. On the stall will be examples of various items of the WT merchandise, including the new THC-friendly t-shirts, giving a good message there at the CBD Expo. None of the WT merchandise is for sale. It is all given on a donation basis, and if you can't afford to if you can't afford to donate for it, you can still have it anyway. So with so much happening all over, it's getting harder and harder for the UK government to deny us human rights, which leads us on to a request for campaign help from the WTU Human Rights Group. They need digital media artists, an events team, media platform support, media contact team, promoters, a fundraising team, and public outreach team. So if you feel you fit any of that criteria, get in touch with the WTU. Next, world news. There seems to be a feel-good factor as the world changes, with suggestions from various directions that the United Nations may finally, in 2020, stop procrastinating and deschedule cannabis completely, leaving any doubt for governments worldwide as to what their individual course of actions should be for a sensible grown-up solution to the failed war on a plant. We also hope the UK will grow up a bit too. We hope these words are planting a seed of thought and more. Excuse me. Mexico has seen some setbacks in legalising recreational use of cannabis, the biggest being social equity. The law requires those people most disadvantaged by the previous ban to be provided with licences to grow for small-scale farms and people on low income ahead of any large business interests, making it not worth large-scale investment. So, an extension was granted to lobbyists trying to ease their way into industrialised scale production as priority over the poor as normal. In the USA, as more states pronounce plans to change their stance on cannabis and more states expunge criminal records, there are still people all over incarcerated for very minor cannabis charges, but that may have more to do with the need for an under-society or slave population to carry out many industries in their largely privatised and very lucrative penal system, and it looks as though Britain is heading in the same direction. In the Bahamas, the National Commission on Marijuana is split on whether to legalise recreational use, so a national survey has been produced to help shape the next steps in this process, giving all Bahamians the chance to have their say. Whilst in Croatia, their parliament is getting ready to vote a law that will legally allow recreational cannabis sales in all of the country no later than next week. If passed, this is massive news for them. As a cherry on the bud, every citizen will be allowed to cultivate as much as 9 crops, including high THC material for his or her own use. In Israel, the Prime Minister said on Sunday he was pushing to legalise recreational cannabis in the Jewish state along the lines enacted by Canada in 2018. While in Manipur, the government is considering legalising the plantation of cannabis in the state. In a statement, their chief minister said the primary purpose of the legalisation will be solely for medicinal and industrial purposes. Nepal. As many as 46 lawmakers in the ruling Nepal Communist Party have registered a motion in Parliament urging the government to legalise the cultivation of marijuana and ban the import of alcohol. The farming, production and trade of marijuana and cannabis are banned in Nepal since 1973. The lawmakers claim that over 65 countries, including the USA, Canada and Germany, who had led the movements for banning marijuana in the 1970s, have already legalised it. So that's the world news in brief. I'm sure there's more happening, but all I can say, if I missed it, is almost in the words of Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show. I was sitting in my basement, I just rolled myself a taste of something green and gold and glorious to get me through the day, when my friend shouted through the intercom, "Get your coat and your purple hat on, there's a nut bar on the corner giving £10 notes away." But I faffed about a bit, then I had another hit, then I rolled myself another and another and another. I choked some, fell over, then faffed about some more. I got stoned and I missed it. I got stoned and I missed it. I got stoned, then I was really high. Which leaves me time to wrap it all up, give a big shout out to Tyler Green and his weekly Friday show, Looking Good Brother, and Simpa Carter of the Durham City Cannabis Club, who have a drop-in and members' nights once a month. You'll have to look them up for events, as I don't have any details from them here. Lincoln Cannabis Club, I hear, are having a good year so far. Any other clubs who want to mention in future news roundups, please send a message to the Breaking420News group. Of course, I have to mention the book, For My Own Safety, Inside My Hat and Other Heads, published by Alan Buffery, containing poems and stuff. All profits going to the WTU campaign fund. I have to mention the book because Alan Buffery, Winston Matthews and Phil Monk have said they will beat me up if I don't. And of course, my own book, What's in a Bender's Cup. This is a fake, look, see. I haven't even got a copy because they don't come to me for ages. Anyway, published this week with any profit made from the 5 expected sales going to promote Universal Canafam, the online Cantheist spiritual church, for want of a better word, church. Cantheism is a plant-based religion incorporating aspects of many religious and spiritual theologies similar to pantheism, but with cannabis as a sacrament. Check it out on Facebook if you have a mind to. Both these books, wow, props. Both these books are available to purchase online for £10 and a penny, which saves on postage, or in paperback, or for £4.20 in digital format. I'm not saying the name, but they should pay their bloody taxes. The link is in the blah blah blah. Most events, as previously advertised, are available to check out on CC Guide, which has been online for decades, run by Alan Buffrey and Winston Matthews. Anyone who wants to announce an event on their page, contact one of them. The usual fee for this is to contribute in some way to the WTU campaign, or either by donations or through some other form of appropriate help, or the campaign in general for other means. Kick the camera. Which just leaves me to cause you to suffer with another terrible poem. This time it's about marijuana, the word, mostly. As I was saying, all the events already mentioned before. Blah, 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 background. So, I mentioned in the world news several times the word marijuana, which loads of people seem to hate. Well, these are, excuse me, these are my thoughts on marijuana. I slid down a cushion. I'm all propped up because I'm in pain. Marijuana. Maybe wanna, or perhaps even Mary Jane. Such quibbling over semantics may seem petty stuff. I wish people wouldn't trip over a word. I mean, enough's enough. Marijuana is just a word. To argue about it is quite absurd. Some people think it's racist. That is what I've heard. But really, when you call it racist, you probably just follow the herd. But people really think it's racist, and here's the reason why. It was made a very famous word by a very racist guy. Harry J. Anslinger was his name. Hemp prohibition was his one true aim. He fooled the people in the West and said marijuana was a pest. Everyone knew what cannabis was for, fabulous medicine and so much more. Cannabis they knew about, and everyone agreed that it was a very useful plant, a non-dangerous weed. When he convinced the world marijuana was bad, some very greedy people were obviously glad. But he tricked them all by using a word that most of them had never heard. If you think that sounds quite crazy, it gets much worse than that. It turned a guy named Dr. Munch into a fucking bat. They must have paid him a lot of money to swear that in court, because he just looked funny. But funny or not, people believed. The prohibitionists must have been quite relieved. There were others too in this clever plot about cannabis, marijuana, weed, or pot. The owners of DuPont and a guy named Hearst. History tells were some of the worst. Prohibitionists are all the same. If you trip over a word, that's clearly their game. So whatever you call it, and this is my point, when you vape or eat or light your joint, if we argue over everything, we just won't ever win. Don't argue over words, that's exactly what they spin. Phew, that took it forever, didn't it? And as a little extra, I will give you, unlucky, extra, another poem, but one from here. Even though I don't have a copy, I did write it, so I know what is in it. It's a very early poem that I wrote ages ago about legalisation. And here it is. Cannabis is Schedule 1, but if you know that's dumb. Medicinal properties, it has none. Well, that's if it's really Schedule 1. Everyone knows that this law sucks, but the government here could give two fucks. They'll make it legal when they make money, but for those who are ill, this just ain't funny. So we'll descend en masse to Parliament Square and try to make the government start to care. Give us our meds is all we ask. Is that such a terribly difficult task? But if they don't give us what we need, the right to our meds and to grow our seed, when it's time to vote, remember this. They'll be at the bottom of our choices list. Cannabis. I'm so bad. Cannabis, bad day today. I'm a bit wobbly and a bit stuffed, but it's all good. That was the news. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you didn't, well, unlucky. You shouldn't have watched it through to this far, if that's the case. Cannabis Day. Have a great weekend. Good luck at the Hemp and CBD Expo this weekend, everybody. Wish I could have been there, but my body is broken, but I still have my brain. Cannabis Day.